This here is another viewer's broken gaming PC, and apparently this one used to turn on, function properly. It was a gaming PC used for a good while, and then all of a sudden it would stop sending a picture. And so basically it wouldn't post, right? You'd turn it on, the fans would spin, things would light up, but you just get no signal to the monitor. And up until like a day ago, according to the owner, the system now just outright refuses to power on at all. So potentially a worsening issue, and I've got a few ideas what it could be, but who knows? If I've learned anything from this playlist, it's not to expect the most reasonable cause. We could be talking about a power supply issue, could be a motherboard, could be the CPU. We've seen it all here. Could be as simple as a cable sliding its way slowly but surely out of a connector. I would not be surprised at this point, but hopefully at the end of this one, we can have the system up and running again for this viewer. Are you ready? Stay with me. To get rid of that annoying Windows activation watermark, head on over to VIP SCD Key and purchase a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for a fraction of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, enter your product key into your PC settings window, and say bye-bye to the watermark. And be sure to use our offer code SKGS for a sweet discount. Hey there, my name's Greg, and this is the Fix or Flop playlist. Here we attempt to diagnose and fix viewers' PCs in and around Orlando, Florida for free. We charge nothing at all. If you took this to a repair shop, they might charge you for labor. They'll certainly charge you for part replacements, but we charge nothing here. We have relationships with the manufacturers that you know, allow us to build systems like these. I'm very grateful for those. And your viewership, just your sheer viewership alone allows us to continue doing what we're doing here. I make money by making videos like these. Not only are they typically informative for folks who might be in, you know, dire straits, who need to troubleshoot their systems, but they can offer a certain entertainment value as well. I understand that. And just seeing me make a fool of myself, maybe completely missing the obvious cause for why a system might not post or turn on at all, I mean, that's entertaining, right? This PC has a Ryzen platform inside. We've got a nice Cooler Master cooler here. Looks like an NZXT, what, H510-ish. Graphics card is, well, it's quite small. It looks like an HP, so probably bought secondhand. But maybe like 1660, 1650, something in that ballpark. And the power supply, EVGA, can't tell the wattage, but we'll figure it out when we get in here. I imagine this will be one of the first things we test, just because of the symptoms that have been described to us. That said, the first thing we need to do in this troubleshooting process, and it's important that you do this as well if you're trying to diagnose a system, whether it be your own or a friend's, is power the system on and attempt to replicate the issue described by the owner. In this case, it is either a no post situation or a straight up no power on situation. I told the owner that I would let him know which it was, just so that we were on the same page, because very recently, apparently the system just doesn't turn on at all. So we're gonna give it our best shot, and hopefully we can fix it. So let's see where we are to start. We'll turn the switch on at the rear, and wow. Dead as a doorknob. I did notice some flickering. Let's see if we can replicate that. Yeah, so a light the back of the motherboard, there might be a light or two showing up there as well. When we first flip it on, but it quickly disappears. Light at the bottom there as well. So, let's see, maybe we can jump the board manually. The two power pins are up top here. And as I suspected, still nothing. So this has presumably nothing to do with the front panel. Oh boy, let's test the power supply. For those wondering, what we use for this is the Passmark Inline PSU tester. It's at a very simple interface on the front. It'll read everything from ripple to just sheer voltages. It'll make sure that the connections are sound and that you're actually getting power fed to the device. And you connect everything here at the rear. Very straightforward, your typical 24-pin, CPU 8-pin, PCIe 6-pin. The reason why this is 6-pin and not 8-pin is because the extra 2 pins are just ground. So when you're reading voltages, yeah, you only need that. SATA out as well if you wanted to bypass or essentially put this in line with the remainder of the unit. You could run this while you're stressing a system, and you could read peak voltages that way as well. So Pretty cool. This tool, I don't know if it's available for sale anywhere, but I will have it linked if I can find it in the video description. Now, with the power supply back on, all we need to do is hold this power button down here, and it should, you know what? I should probably reconnect the power cable. That was silly of me. Okay, now let's try it. So we'll hold this down, and you can see power on. So the unit is on. So it's a bit like jumping the 24 pin. And let's see here, we can cycle through. I know that it's totally blown out on screen here. Let me drop the ISO. There we go. So 12 volt, 5 volt, 12 volt 2. Looks good. Slew rate, timings, ripples. So power supply is fine. That is not the issue here. We should also clear the Cmos while we're here. It doesn't take too long, about 10 to 20 seconds. We're gonna jump these two Cmos pins here on the board. I don't have a dedicated one on the back, I believe. And once we remove this, the BIOS should be totally cleared. If there was any setting in here preventing the system from posting, this would get rid of that. I'm also going to swap out this single stick of DDR4 just to be on the safe side. If this isn't inserted properly, it could totally explain why we're getting this weird kind of power on, power off scenario. I don't know why the CPU fan cable is unplugged. We'll connect that again. And I'll get a stick of my, my own DDR4 that I know works. All right, round two, let's see. Yeah, still nothing. We're getting that odd flickering again in the motherboard. I can see a light or two just for a split second show up. And then yeah, everything cuts right back off again. Okay, let's try this. We're gonna remove everything except for the motherboard, CPU, and memory. That's all we're gonna leave in. And that will help us narrow down whether this is a platform issue or something else random. Let's slide this out. Now, this is going to be our only source for video. I'm assuming the Ryzen CPU in here doesn't have an integrated graphics processor, but we're not really concerned about a post at this point. We just need the thing to power on. And now that we're stripped, let's see. It did the same thing that it always does. So yeah, not expecting this to work. Wow. So we're looking at either a motherboard issue or a CPU issue. Just keeps flickering on and off. That's all we get. Huh. Forgot to unplug this extra fan cable, but I doubt that's causing the problem. Yep, again. Thing just doesn't want to power on. I noticed some of these screws are either loose or missing. It's possible this board was swapped out or maybe just tinkered with prior to me receiving it. I don't know. Just yeah, even this one is loose. Something's fishy here. So let's take the platform out. Getting snagged on a few things. There we go. Go ahead and remove the CPU cooler. One more screw on this side. We'll check the chip itself. Ooh, yeah, just comes straight up. We'll check the pins on the chip. We'll check the socket itself. Make sure things are cleaned up and then we don't have any missing pins. I did notice right away a bit of debris here at the top of the socket. And while I doubt, well, as I say that, I was about to say I doubt this caused the no post, no power issue, but this is some thick stuff here. What is it? It's like thermal paste. Let me see if I can get that up with alcohol. Easy does it. And we're gonna try not to fill those slot holes or those little pinholes with debris. It's kind of difficult to do that when I can't grab it with my little pliers. This is some gross stuff here. Some chalky thermal paste. Oh, and would you look at that? I didn't notice this before, but something is wrong with the socket itself. This part of the housing for the retention clip is completely pulled up, and that might be affecting the contact that the CPU is making with the pads in the socket itself. So I'm gonna see if I can fix this. It looks like it should just clip back down, but it's definitely not in in the proper state right now. Let's see how it's bulging a bit here toward the bottom, and there are clips that hold the top of the socket in place, but you can see I can pull this retention arm all the way back. That's not how this is supposed to work. And yeah, you can see how it bulges there. So this might just be and just a piece of plastic we either need to replace, we can just swap boards out and I can handle this offsite later. But yeah, it shouldn't be doing this. I can kind of temporarily fix it just by pushing everything back into place, but it's definitely not ready to go as is. Well, I mean, we can try it. We'll see. By the way, on the CPU side of things, this is a Ryzen 5 5500, which you don't see too many of across in the shop. This is 6 cores, 12 threads, and it uses a Zen 3 architecture, of course. But all around physically, it looks pretty darn good. I don't see any noticeably bent or missing pins. So unless there's something internally wrong with the chip, I think we're good to go here. I'm gonna try reassembling things outside just as a makeshift test bench to double check on the state of the socket. We'll try powering things back on. If we get the same symptom as before, I'm going to assume that it's the socket itself that's just not locking the CPU in place. I expect that we're not making proper contact with some of the pads below, and as such, it just doesn't register that a chip is even in the socket. You can't power the system on without a CPU. So let's give it a shot. And here we are, several minutes later. I've got the platform, it's kind of janky, I know. It's still connected to the original power supply, it's just the platform itself is out of the case. Okay, anyway, let's power the system on, or attempt to. So, power at the rear. We'll need to jump. Oh! It's working! Did we just fix it? Now we've got the monitor connected, so if we get a picture, we should see it. If it posts, we should see it. So, let's see. Come on. What are we stuck on? We've got a debug LED over here. DRAM. Uh-oh. We have a problem with DRAM? Come on, we're so close. I mean, at least it's on now, right? It's not cutting off after half a second. I switched back to his original stick of DDR4. He only had one in here, and yeah, it's still the same problem. We get straight to the DRAM LED light, the debug stuff down below, and then it'll very quickly flash to the CPU and back to DRAM again. I will say though, I'm glad at least the system is powering on again, so we've made a pretty significant leap forward. We're probably back to square one though with what the owner was initially describing about how he wasn't getting a signal to his monitor. It's possible maybe when he was like moving his platform around, maybe he removed his CPU cooler and reinstalled it, damaged the socket there. Maybe it was already damaged and things just came loose, so the CPU wasn't making proper contact with the pads in the socket. Who really knows? But yeah, we still need to figure out what's wrong here. Maybe we'll try a different DRAM slot this time around. Could this be a case of a dead memory channel? So usually it'll be channel B, these inner twomost slots, or channel A, either way, and then the outer twomost slots will be the opposite channel. If we move this DIMM to, say, the outermost slot, will the system post? So that's the outermost slot now, and the answer to the question is no. Still nothing. Wow, my camera hates focusing on a black screen. So here's what we're gonna do then. I'm gonna swap this CPU out for one that I have in my arsenal that I know works. Say a Ryzen 5 2600. Now I'm doing this strategically because the board we're using here in the viewer system is a B450 variant. So that chipset natively supported Zen Plus, which this SKU falls under. And if we need to, we'll update the BIOS, because that might be one of the reasons why we're not getting a post, and I can update the BIOS with this chip because I expect this should post natively. If this doesn't work, we'll most certainly need to replace the motherboard. We pretty much narrowed it down to either the CPU or the board. Here we go then. What will it be? Power's on. Debug LED jumps straight to DRAM again. It's still flickering between CPU and DRAM. So if I can't update this board's BIOS, there's no BIOS flashback function here. This is just too old for it. It's not the highest end Aorus board either. I mean, because I don't have flashback and a natively supported Zen Plus CPU won't allow the platform to post, I really have no other way of updating the BIOS here. I think a motherboard swap is going to be the easiest, quickest solution for him, so we can get the system back up and running again. I really have no choice. Exact same symptoms, much older supported CPU, still nothing. Tried both sticks of RAM, his and mine, multiple slots, nothing. So, all right, well, I guess the motherboard replacement is It's not that big a deal now that we've already stripped everything down anyway. This here is a Tough Gaming B450 motherboard, and this is actually one of the only ones I have left. I've been replacing so many motherboards, it seems, lately. I need to refresh my stock. But this is the same chipset that he has with his current board, but I know this one works, and I'm pretty sure it has a recent BIOS update as well. I'll check that for him and update it if I need to. But we're gonna go ahead and swap this one in and see if his 5500 posts. Also, don't want to forget this M.2 here. This was hiding under this lower heat sink. As a rule of thumb, generally what you want to do is connect your M.2 to the highest M.2 slot on your motherboard. Typically that'll let you access the CPU lanes versus PCH. It shouldn't make too big a difference, but sometimes you might be connecting a SATA M.2 or vice versa to the wrong drive or to the wrong port, and that could cause issues because some of these are only compatible with one or the other depending on your BIOS setting. So we're going to install this in the new board in the top M.2 slot. that'll be this one right here. Also refreshing to be using a socket that is not like half broken. So yeah, that's that's cool. Oh, and there's actual tension in this clip. That's so nice. So let's try our luck again. Just gonna do the same thing as last time. The original power supply. Gonna jump the power pins right there. Do we have a Dr. Debug LED in here? No, we don't have any debug LEDs on this board. But I think we'll be okay. If not, I need to update the BIOS. That'd be my first assumption. That's a signal. Are we gonna get a post? Hey, there it is. So let's make sure. Give me a second, let me get my keyboard. Oh, you know what, never mind. Forgot I put my Ryzen 5 2600 in here. We can take this moment though to update this motherboard to the most recent BIOS, which should obviously support the 5500, and probably the most stable as well with the latest AGESA update. So I've just saved the most recent stable BIOS for this motherboard onto this thumb drive. We'll connect it right here. Then in the advanced mode, we'll swing on over to Tool, usually it's here. Yep, Easy Flash 3 Utility. And we'll want to do it via storage devices. So this, let's see, which one? I think it's this one here. No, it is not that one. I think it's the bottom one then. Yes, that's more like it. This .cap file is the one we want, so we'll select that. Then I just found a bug on my desk. We'll click yes. So to read the file and ensure that it's the correct one for this board, and then we'll click yes. Now, while this is happening, do not power off your system. You could break your motherboard. That would give you some headaches. All right, and a few minutes later, a few restarts later, you can see we're up to date on the BIOS. So let's swap this 5500 back in here, and I'm just gonna go ham. I'm gonna go ahead and install everything back into the case and just assume that a CPU is fine. This could bite me in the butt, but just in an effort to save time, let's go for it. This makes no sense. Also going to give this viewer a few extra screws because, like I said earlier, he was missing quite a few. Take care of some basic wiring here. Front panel is very nice to work with a unified connector here in the H510. Can't forget the graphics card. This here and the power cable. Where did that go? That's more like it, and I think we're done. Just take care of a few screws. We can power the system on. Let's give it a go and see where we are. HDMI cable, power at the rear, power button up front. I think this is gonna work. Unless the CPU is dead, which I didn't actually verify. We can verify it here. Come on, give me something. Yep, that's it. That's signal. And Lisa's sitting in the chair watching me. Yay, there we go. We detected a new processor. That's totally normal. So let's click F1. Let's click F. I probably should connect my USB. Let's see. Press Y to reset. Oh, yeah, okay. So we want to press Y. There we go. And it should throw us into the BIOS directly. There will enable DOCP for him so that his memory is up to speed. And that should be it. We'll make sure his boot drive is detected. I believe it was in the BIOS originally. And there we go. So I'll make sure that it boots into Windows off camera just very quickly. We'll enable DOCP. And the build's ready to go in. We cable managed for him as well, so it looks a lot cleaner now. It was a bit of a contained disaster, let's say, before. Cables weren't routed in optimal places, so we fixed it up for him. And ultimately didn't have to replace anything else apart from the motherboard. Well, what a doozy. The motherboard strikes again. It is the issue. Swapping it out was the quick fix. But I think more specifically, what's wrong with this one is it's physical damage. The socket itself is clearly damaged. You should not be able to pull this lever all the way back like so. And there's no resistance here at all. It goes all the way back without any pressure. And you can see that, well, I know you can't see from there, but it's just the socket is lifted up on the end, and I don't think there's enough tension there. It's not lining the chip up correctly so that the pins are making contact the way they should. It's just all around kind of a basket case. And if it was something I thought I could fix, sure, I'd have at it. I don't think I can make this any better than it is though. I already tried kind of clamping things back into position, and that always ends up just undoing itself once the CPU is inserted into the socket. So what I'm probably gonna do is send this to Gigabyte and see if they can replace the socket itself. They might not be able to, but at this point, I can't use the board until it's repaired, and I just don't have the tools here to fix it. So I'll let you know, maybe in a pinned comment or a follow-up video, what happens with this board. I think everything else is okay with it. It just comes down to, yeah, actual physical socket damage. How that happened, who knows? With that, if you guys enjoyed watching this video, give this one a thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. If you haven't subscribed yet, get subscribed. What the heck are you doing? I will again give you some updates on this motherboard as they roll in. I'm expecting I'll reach out to Gigabyte in the next few days as of time of filming, so maybe by the time you watch this video, when it's published, I'll already have an answer for you. If you think this is something you could fix, maybe you could like heat and melt the plastic and relock these pins and keep the socket tension up to, you know, standards. I don't know. It's kind of toast, but I think everything else about the board is fine, and that's what bothers me the most here. Is the board seems okay otherwise. It's just the socket that we need to address. Anyway, I'll update you then. Subscribe, like, I already said those things. Check out our links down in the video description, and I will catch you in the next one. Oh, I almost forgot. If you have a broken system and you live in and around Orlando, Florida, I want to fix it for free, okay? Or I want to try to anyway. That's why we call it fix or flop. Sometimes we flop, but most of the times we can fix these, and I won't charge you a dime. Like I said, I have great relationships with sponsors and just hardware vendors in general, and it's thanks to your viewership that I'm able to continue doing this because, well, you know, having manufactured products in these videos is great publicity for the company, right, in question. Like, for example, Be Quiet. They've sponsored cases in the past. And not even so much about the sponsored stuff as it is just being able to send hardware in general, whether or not it's used or not. The fact is they're willing to send stuff to me because you guys watch these videos. And that's about as blunt as I can be about it. So your continued viewership is much appreciated. Hopefully you continue at least being entertained by these fix or flop videos, maybe also learn a thing or two as well. I know I have. I've learned so much since the first episode of Season 1. Again, thanks so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.